The national media has done it again. Another wild, borderline delusional prediction about the Cincinnati Bengals. And honestly, this one's laughable. Welcome to Bengals Digest, your go-to spot for all things Who Dey. I'm Carl Loki. Let's get into it. So here's what's making noise. A recent report by CBS Sports claims that after the 2025 season, the Bengals could move on from Zac Taylor. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. We're talking about the same Zac Taylor who transformed this team from a rebuild into a Super Bowl contender. The same guy who helped shape one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL. And now we're suddenly pretending his job isn't safe. Before we dive deeper into this ridiculous narrative, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and don't forget to smash the bell icon so you never miss a moment of Bengals action. All right, let's move on to the real news. Look, if you understand football, really understand what's happening in Cincinnati, there's no way you take this prediction seriously. Unless the entire team collapses or Joe Burrow gets injured long term, this franchise is too talented, too well structured, and too motivated to bottom out. And that's what this prediction basically suggests, that the Bengals could finish with just 2 or 3 wins in 2025. Come on. This isn't 2019. This isn't a young coach trying to find his footing anymore. Zac Taylor has proven himself. He's part of that Sean McVay coaching tree that values creativity, adaptability, and player-first culture, all of which the Bengals have bought into. If you've been watching this team closely, you know this. Cincinnati isn't just here to compete. They're here to finish what they started. Let's be real. This entire prediction feels like someone is just fishing for headlines. According to CBS Sports, the Bengals will fire Zac Taylor after the 2025 season. That's right. They're already writing off the head coach who led Cincinnati to multiple playoff runs, an AFC championship, and arguably the most exciting era in franchise history. The logic? Because Taylor is under pressure to win this year. Well, no kidding. Every NFL head coach is under pressure to win. Tyler Sullivan of CBS even ranked Taylor third among NFL coaches with the most to prove this fall. Third, as if the Bengals are some unstable franchise teetering on collapse. It's baffling. Now here's where it gets even more dramatic. Sullivan claims that if Taylor doesn't bring this team back to the playoffs, he's gone. Fired. Just like that. But let's break this down. Is missing the playoffs once enough reason to throw away years of culture building, offensive chemistry, and locker room leadership? Not even close. Sure, the AFC North is no joke. The Ravens are always tough. Pittsburgh is reloading. And Cleveland? Well, they exist. But Taylor has shown he knows how to navigate this gauntlet. And he has Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and a young, evolving defense to do it. Yes, there are some questions, especially on the defensive side. The Trey Hendrickson situation, still developing. Rookie pass rusher Mar Stewart, a work in progress. But let's not pretend the sky is falling. A team like Cincinnati, with this much talent, continuity, and proven leadership, doesn't just collapse unless something catastrophic happens. So if CBS really thinks the Bengals are on the verge of hitting the reset button, they haven't been watching closely. Let's talk real for a second. The Bengals are entering one of the most critical seasons of this era. But let's be clear, this is not a make-or-break year for Zac Taylor. It's a make-or-break year for the entire franchise. Now, yes, the Trey Hendrickson situation is messy. Both sides are handling it poorly. And if it somehow ends in a trade, that would hit hard. We're talking about losing your top edge rusher on a defense that already gave up 25.5 points per game, tied for 5th worst in the league. That's not just a weak spot. That's a red flag. But even with that context, the idea that Taylor's job is on the line still doesn't hold up. Let's not ignore facts. The Bengals did lose 6 games last season despite putting up 25 plus points. They even dropped 2 games where the offense exploded for 38 points. That's not coaching incompetence. That's a defense failing to hold the line. So sure, the pressure is real, but it's not all on Taylor's shoulders. This upcoming season, it's about finding out what kind of team the Bengals really are. Is this group still in its Super Bowl window, or is that window starting to slide shut? Because having Joe Burrow under center gives you a shot every year, no question. And having Jamar Chase and T. Higgins doesn't hurt either. But if you're depending solely on Burrow to carry you through high-scoring shootouts every week, that's a dangerous strategy. The truth is, the Bengals have reached a tipping point. This isn't just about wins and losses. This is about identity. If this team can't prove they're a complete roster, not just an elite offense with a struggling defense, then the narrative shifts. Not just for the media, but for the locker room, for the fans, and for the front office. And that's why 2025 isn't just another season. It's a defining chapter. Let's be honest. The idea of Zac Taylor being fired after the season, that would only make sense if the Bengals completely collapsed. And I mean 4 wins or less kind of collapse. And that's not happening. Historically, Cincinnati doesn't operate like other NFL teams. They don't make emotional knee-jerk decisions with their head coaches. This franchise has always believed in stability, and Zac Taylor has earned every ounce of it. Let's not forget, he's under contract through 2026, and more importantly, he's arguably the most successful head coach the Bengals have ever had. If this were another franchise, maybe the conversation would be different. But this is the Cincinnati Bengals, run by Mike Brown, a man who gave Marvin Lewis 16 seasons without a single playoff win. You think he's going to cut ties with a coach who already took this team to the Super Bowl? Let's run it back. In just his 3rd year, Taylor guided the Bengals to their first Super Bowl appearance in decades. The very next season, they were 1 game away from going back. And while the last 2 seasons ended 9-8 without playoff trips, context matters. Joe Burrow battled injuries and the team never fully found rhythm. Still, Zac Taylor has done more than just make the playoffs. He's won in the playoffs, he's built trust in the locker room, and he's shown a long-term vision that this franchise has fully bought into. The proof? This past offseason, Mike Brown handed him the keys. Full control over the coaching staff. That's not something you do when you're thinking about firing someone. That's something you do when you believe in the guy leading your team. So, unless disaster strikes, Zac Taylor isn't going anywhere. Let's set the record straight. Zac Taylor should not be fired. Yes, there was noise last season, fans calling for his head mid-season, others wanting change in the offseason. But let's not forget who we're talking about. Taylor is the guy who coached the Bengals to a Super Bowl, followed it up with an AFC championship game, and helped turn this team from a bottom feeder to a contender. He's not perfect. No coach is. But Zac Taylor is not the problem. The truth is, Cincinnati's success, especially on offense, may have blinded us to a bigger issue: the defense. Go back and rewatch those playoff runs. Sure, the Bengals had elite moments, but as a unit, the defense was never top tier. It was serviceable. It made plays when it had to. But overall, very average. And because the offense was electric, with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and the rest lighting up scoreboards, nobody really pressed the panic button. Not the fans, not the media, not the staff. Everything seemed fine, until it wasn't. That overconfidence carried over. The same scheme, the same defensive coordinator, the same personnel. No major shifts. Because why fix what didn't seem broken? But here's the truth. The last 2 seasons exposed it all. Back-to-back 9-8 finishes. No playoffs. And in almost every loss, it was the defense giving up leads, not the offense choking games away. Aside from a sluggish Week 1 last year, the offense held its own. But starting slow, that's another issue Zac needs to solve. This team can't afford to stumble out of the gate again. But again, let's zoom out. This is still Zac Taylor's first ever head coaching job. Mistakes were bound to happen. The difference is, he's made far more progress than failure. He's proven he can win. Now it's about evolving, especially on defense, to take the next step. Here's the thing no one wants to admit. Being a head coach in the NFL takes time. Real time. Not 1 season. Not 2. Not even 4. especially not in a division like the AFC North, where you're constantly going up against some of the league's most battle-tested coaches and toughest defenses. Zac Taylor was thrown into that fire as a first-time head coach in one of the most physical, brutal divisions in football, and still managed to take this team to a Super Bowl. That alone should buy him more grace than he's getting. And now, he's growing. You can see it. This offseason is proof. He's not just sitting back hoping Joe Burrow saves the day. He's putting real energy into fixing the defense, something that hasn't been prioritized nearly enough in the past. He's not a defensive guy, and he's not pretending to be one. That's smart. He's handing that responsibility to Al Golden, giving him the reins to reshape a defense that's desperately needed fresh thinking. That's what a real leader does. He delegates with trust, not ego. The calls to fire Zac Taylor just don't hold up. They ignore the long view, the context, the steady climb this franchise has made under his leadership. Building a Super Bowl team doesn't happen overnight. It takes years to install the right staff, build chemistry, understand your team's identity, and adjust as the league changes around you. Zac Taylor is in that process, and he's farther along than most realize. Let's stop pretending like setbacks erase success. Because in Cincinnati, Taylor has already shown he's capable of something the city hadn't seen in decades: true contention. Let's be clear, Zac Taylor isn't going anywhere. Not now, not next season, and probably not for a long time. This is the coach who helped draft Joe Burrow, the coach who built a system around him, the coach who led the Bengals to an AFC North title, an AFC championship, and a Super Bowl, something that felt unthinkable for this franchise just a few years ago. Taylor's already experienced what it takes to navigate the gauntlet of the AFC North, survive playoff wars, and make it to the biggest stage in the sport. And that kind of experience? That doesn't just disappear after 2 9-win seasons. Mike Brown knows exactly what he has. He's not the type of owner to hit the panic button, especially not on the most successful head coach this team has had in modern memory. So while some outside noise might keep talking about pressure and hot seats, here's the reality. Zac Taylor is locked in. His relationship with Burrow, his leadership, his understanding of what it takes to build a contender, it all makes him a long-term piece of this franchise's identity. Yes, this season is important. Yes, it could define where the Bengals stand in the Super Bowl window, but Taylor's job isn't on the line. If anything, the next contract might already be waiting. The Bengals are building for more than just one season, and Zac Taylor is still the man steering the ship.